when she started defending a friend. He didn't appear in her life all at once. There was no announcement, no explanation. He just started showing up in conversations. At first, it was small things. A name mentioned in passing. He texted, he asked, he's worried. I didn't focus on it. Everyone has friends. The problem didn't start with him. It started with how she reacted whenever he came up. That evening, we were at my place. Nothing special, dinner, a show, a quiet night. She went to the shower and left her phone on the table. The screen lit up. I didn't read the chat. I didn't even touch the phone. I just saw the notification. It was from him. No greeting. No emojis. Short and tense. Where are you? We said we'd talk today. Not hey. Not how are you. The kind of message you send when you expect an explanation. Something tightened in my chest. When she came back, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I just asked why he was texting her like that so late in the evening. Her reaction was too fast. She immediately said he was a friend. That he was going through a rough time. That things were hard for him. That he had just gone through a breakup and she felt bad ignoring him. I said I understood, but it still felt strange, especially when we were together. That's when something shifted. Her face changed. Her voice got sharper. She said I was overreacting. That I was seeing danger where there was none. That he texted like that because he trusted her. I asked why he trusted her more than a friend normally should. Her answer came out aggressive. She said I had no right to interfere in her friendships. That he'd been in her life long before me. That he was there for her when no one else was. That's when I felt like I'd been pushed aside. I said it was uncomfortable being in a relationship where a third person could intrude so freely. She snapped back that those were my insecurities. That I was trying to control her. That normal people don't act this way. Then she said something that changed the whole conversation. She said if she ever had to choose between me and a friend, she wouldn't choose at all. Because real partners accept everything. I stopped talking. Because I realized she wasn't defending boundaries. She was defending a person. A few days later, he texted again. This time, it was even more direct. I'm not okay without you. I'm used to you being there. You know that. I asked again what that meant. She grabbed the phone and said I shouldn't read things that weren't meant for me. That I was crossing a line. 2 weeks later, I saw them together. In broad daylight. At a cafe. No hiding. He was holding her hand. And she let him. When she noticed me, there was no guilt on her face. Only irritation, like I had interrupted something. Later, she texted that things were complicated. That I misunderstood everything. That he had always been an important person in her life. But after that evening, I didn't need explanations. Because when someone starts defending a friend harder than the relationship, you've already lost, even if no one has said it out loud yet. We weren't young. We had a life, a routine, kids, bills, work schedules pinned to the fridge. That's why, when she mentioned a male colleague at work, I didn't react. I wasn't insecure anymore. I wasn't checking phones. I trusted the structure we'd built. She said he sometimes drove her home after late meetings. Said it was safer. Said it was convenient. It sounded reasonable. It started happening more often. She would come home later than usual, tired, quiet. Sometimes dressed a little too nicely for a normal workday. When I asked, she said they'd had meetings with clients. Or long discussions after hours. I believed her. One evening, one of the kids asked why mom went to the restaurant with the man from work again. I froze. I asked what restaurant. He named one of the most expensive places in the city. That night, I asked her directly. She didn't deny it. She said they sometimes had dinner after work to talk about projects. That it helped them focus. That it wasn't romantic. I said normal coworkers don't take each other to places that require reservations. That's when her tone changed. She said he was going through a hard time. That he was lonely. That he needed someone to talk to. I asked why she was that someone. She said I was overreacting. That I was tired. That I was turning work into drama. The more uncomfortable I became, the more aggressively she defended him. She said he'd never crossed the line. That he respected her. That I should stop imagining things. A week later, I saw them together. Not accidentally. I went looking. Same restaurant. Same table by the window. His hand resting close to hers. Too close for coworkers. Too familiar for work. I walked in. He stood up immediately. Tried to say something. I didn't let him. I shoved him first. He hit back. It was ugly. Loud. Fast. People pulled us apart. And then she stepped in, not to stop me. To protect him. She stood between us, shouting at me. Saying he did nothing wrong. Saying I was embarrassing her. Saying these were just work meetings. She called him poor guy. Said he didn't deserve this. That moment broke something in me. Because she wasn't calming the situation. She wasn't explaining. She wasn't choosing peace. She was choosing him. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, she finally told the truth. It hadn't started with sex. It started with conversations. Then dinners. Then comfort. And then one night after work, it crossed the line. She said it like a report. Calm. almost relieved. I realized something then. It wasn't the affair that destroyed us. It was the moment she defended another man, publicly, fiercely, while I stood there as the villain. That's when I knew the marriage had ended long before the truth came out. We had been married long enough that life ran on autopilot. Work, school schedules, groceries, bedtime routines. Nothing dramatic. Just a family doing what families do. That's why I didn't pay attention when she started mentioning a coworker. A man from her office. Reliable. Helpful. Always staying late. She said he often drove her home. Said it was safer after evening meetings. Said traffic was bad, and it made sense. I agreed. I trusted her. The changes were small at first. Later dinners. More makeup for workdays. Her phone always face down on the table. I told myself this is what adulthood looks like. The first real warning didn't come from her. It came from our daughter. One night, while I was reading her a story, she asked a simple question. She wanted to know why mom laughed more with that man from work than with me. I asked what she meant. She said sometimes her mom picked her up later than usual, and that man was in the car. She said they talked a lot. She said they laughed. And that once, mom told her not to mention it. That sentence stayed with me. I asked my wife about it the next day. Calmly. Carefully. She said the kids misunderstood. That they were imagining things. That I was overthinking a harmless work friendship. I wanted to believe her. A week later, our son mentioned the restaurant. He asked if that place was where mom and her work friend go after work. It was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. That night, I didn't raise my voice. I asked her directly. She admitted they went there sometimes. Said it was convenient. Said they talked about projects. Said it helped her decompress. I asked why she never told me. She said it wasn't important. When I said it felt wrong, she became defensive. She said he was struggling. That his life wasn't easy. That he needed support. I asked why she was supporting him. She snapped. Said I was jealous. Said I was turning nothing into a problem. Said he was just a colleague. Then she said something that ended the conversation. She said the children didn't understand adult relationships, and that I shouldn't use them to manipulate her. I didn't argue after that, because what broke me wasn't the dinners or the rides home. It was the realization that our children saw something she refused to admit, and that she defended him more fiercely than she protected our family. Months later, she finally told me the truth. It had crossed the line. Not once. Not accidentally. She said it quietly, like it was inevitable. But I already knew. Because when kids notice first, it means the lie had been living in the open for a long time. I was 16, and back then feelings didn't have volume control. If you liked someone, it took over your entire world. We started dating quietly. No big confession, no dramatic moment. Just sitting together after school, sharing headphones. Walking home the long way so the evening wouldn't end too fast. She was my first everything. And I wanted to be careful, because it felt fragile. Like if I made one wrong move, it would all disappear. The friend was there from the beginning, but only as a name. She mentioned him casually. Someone she'd known since middle school. Someone who lived nearby. Someone who knew her forever. I didn't think much of it. At that age, you're taught that jealousy is ugly, so I tried not to feel it. I told myself I was being mature. They texted a lot. Not hiding it. Not secretly. Just often. Sometimes we'd be sitting together, and her phone would vibrate. She'd glance at the screen and smile. Not a big smile, just a soft one. The kind you don't notice at first. I noticed. One afternoon after school, I asked who she was always talking to. She said his name and immediately added that he was just a friend. Said she'd known him forever. Said there was nothing to worry about. I believed her. I wanted to. The first time I felt truly uncomfortable was during a group hangout. We were all sitting on the steps near the school, talking about nothing. He showed up late, dropped next to her, and leaned in like it was natural. Too natural. He joked with her the way people do when they know exactly where the line is, and how close they can get without crossing it. I stayed quiet. Later that evening, I told her it made me feel weird. She laughed. Not mockingly. Gently. Said I was overthinking. Said he was basically family. Said he'd always been like that. Then she said something that stuck with me. She said it wasn't fair to be jealous of someone who was in her life before me. After that, it got worse, slowly. Whenever we argued, she brought him up as an example. How he understood her. How he didn't pressure her. How he let things be easy. When I pulled away, she said I was acting childish. When I asked for reassurance, she said I was insecure. One night, we argued over nothing. Just one of those teenage fights where everything feels too big. I told her it felt like there were 3 people in our relationship. She got angry. She said I was trying to control her friendships. That I didn't get to tell her who mattered. That he'd never done anything wrong. She defended him with a certainty she never used when she talked about us. A week later, she canceled our plans because he needed to talk. Not an emergency. Not a crisis. Just needed her. When I said it hurt, she said I was being dramatic. That was the moment I knew something had shifted. A few days later, I saw them walking together after school. Laughing. Close. Not holding hands, but close enough. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. When we eventually broke up, she said it wasn't because of him. She said we just changed. 2 weeks later, they were together. Officially. And it wasn't the breakup that stayed with me the longest. It was the memory of all those times I felt second place and told myself I was imagining it. Because when someone keeps defending a friend while you're quietly falling apart, that's not immaturity. That's your first lesson in how love can disappear without anyone ever admitting it did. I was 17, and I had planned that day down to the smallest detail. Not because I was confident, because I wasn't. We hadn't been dating long, but this was supposed to be our first real time alone outside school. No friends. No group. Just us. I told my parents I'd be late. I picked a place I thought felt calm and grown up. I even rehearsed what I might say if there was an awkward pause. I got there early, like always. When I saw her walking toward me, I smiled, and then my stomach dropped. She wasn't alone. Next to her was a guy I had never seen before. Tall, relaxed, hands in his pockets, walking like he belonged there. She waved like everything was normal. She said his name and added, casually, that he was a friend, that he was bored and decided to tag along. I laughed, automatically, the kind of laugh you do when you don't understand what's happening yet. I waited for her to say something else, to explain, to tell him to go. She didn't. We started walking. The three of us. At first, I thought it was temporary, that he'd leave after a few minutes, that this was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't. He talked a lot. About school, about music, about teachers they both hated. They laughed easily, interrupting each other, finishing each other's sentences. I walked slightly behind them, listening. Anytime there was a pause, I tried to bring the conversation back to us. Asked her questions. Tried to connect. He answered instead. At one point, I quietly asked her if we could talk alone for a bit. She looked surprised. Said she didn't see the problem. Said he was just hanging out. Said I was being weird about it. The word weird landed hard. I stopped trying after that. We sat down at a table. He took the seat next to her without thinking. She didn't move. I sat across from them, feeling like I was watching something I wasn't invited to. When I finally said I thought this was supposed to be a date, she sighed. Said I never said it explicitly. Said she didn't want to ditch her friend. Said he'd known her longer than I had. Then she defended him, calmly, confidently. Said he didn't do anything wrong. Said he just wanted to be there. Said it wasn't fair to make him feel unwanted. I realized then that no one was worried about how I felt. When the evening ended, she hugged him first. A long hug. I got a quick one after. Later, when I told her how bad it made me feel, she said I embarrassed her. Said I was insecure. Said she shouldn't have to choose between me and her friends. A week later, I saw them together again. This time without me. That's when it clicked. She didn't bring him by accident. She brought him because she already knew who she was more comfortable with. And that was the moment I learned something early. Sometimes you don't lose someone to a friend. You just find out, in front of everyone, that you were never alone with them to begin with. We weren't new to each other. We had routines, responsibilities, mornings that started early and evenings that ended quietly. That's why I didn't question it when she said a friend from work was coming over. Someone I'd heard about, but never met. She said he needed advice. Just a conversation. I didn't mind. Adults have friends. Adults talk. He arrived late. After dinner. Polite, relaxed, confident. The kind of man who acts like he belongs anywhere he stands. We sat together in the living room. Drinks. Small talk. Nothing inappropriate. At least at first. As the night went on, I noticed how comfortable they were. How they leaned toward each other without thinking. How their jokes didn't need context. When it got late, I said I was tired and suggested we wrap things up. She looked at the clock and said it was too late for him to go home. Said public transport was terrible at night. Said it wouldn't be safe. I waited for her to look at me, to ask how I felt about it. She didn't. She told him he could stay on the couch. He didn't even hesitate, just nodded and smiled. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. I asked if that was really necessary. She answered immediately. Said he was just a friend. Said I was making it awkward. Said it was one night and I should relax. She defended him like I'd accused him of a crime. I went to bed angry but quiet. In the middle of the night, I woke up and realized she wasn't next to me. I found her in the kitchen. They were sitting across from each other at the table. Low voices. Close. Too close for two people who were just talking. She looked guilty for a second, not because of him, but because she'd been caught. The next morning, she acted normal. Coffee. Jokes. Plans for the day. He left with a hug. Later, I told her that it crossed a line. She said I was being dramatic. Said nothing happened. Said I embarrassed her by making a big deal out of it. Then she said the thing that stayed with me. She said I should trust her and stop feeling threatened by someone who wasn't going anywhere. A month later, I understood what she meant. He wasn't going anywhere. Because when someone stays the night, and the person you love defends them instead of you, the betrayal doesn't need a confession. It already happened. Quietly, politely, right in front of you. I found out about him at a table full of people. It was a work event. One of those mixed gatherings where partners are invited, but no one really talks to anyone properly. Long table, loud music, polite smiles. I was sitting next to her. Relaxed. Comfortable. Then someone across the table raised a glass and thanked him for always being there for her. They used his name. Casually. Like everyone already knew the story. I didn't. She froze for half a second. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. I waited for her to explain. She didn't. The conversation moved on, but something had shifted. I wasn't part of it anymore. Later, I asked who he was. She said he was a friend. Someone she worked closely with. Someone who helped her when things were stressful. I asked why people were thanking him for her. She said I was reading too much into it. Over the next few weeks, I noticed patterns I hadn't seen before. She had meetings I was never invited to. Events she said weren't my kind of thing. Dinners she said were networking. His name came up more often. Always casually. Always defended in advance. When I finally said it felt like there was a part of her life I wasn't allowed into, she sighed. Said adults don't need full access to each other's worlds. Said I was confusing privacy with secrecy. Then I asked a simple question. Had I ever met him? She hesitated. Then said no, and that it didn't matter. That was the first time I felt embarrassed for believing her. A week later, I met him by accident. He walked into a bar where I was meeting friends. Saw me. Recognized me immediately. Introduced himself like we already knew each other. Told me they worked very closely. Told me she talked about me often. Smiled the entire time. When I told her later, she didn't ask what he said. She asked what I said. Then she got angry, not at him for crossing a boundary, but at me for talking to him without her. She said I put him in an uncomfortable position. Said I embarrassed her professionally. Said he didn't deserve to be dragged into our insecurities. That's when I understood. She wasn't defending a friend. She was defending a structure, a life where I stayed separate. I never accused her of cheating. I didn't need to. Because when someone protects another person more than the relationship itself, what they're really protecting is the option to leave without feeling guilty.